The first is about China's attraction of FDI from the first 8 months of 2018. There are several characteristics. First of all, we have a significant increase in the number of newly established enterprises, and the actual use of FDI has been stabilized. For the first 8 months, we have 41,331 newly established foreign enterprises, a year-on-year increase of 102.7%. The actual use of FDI is up to 560 billion RMB, a year-on-year increase of 2.3%. For this month of August, we have newly established 6,092 foreign enterprises, a year-on-year increase of 126.8%. The actual use of FDI is 63.7 billion RMB, a year-on-year increase at by 1.9%. The second characteristic is the significant increase in the high-tech industry and a good performance in manufacturing. The actual use of FDI in manufacturing is up to 172 billion RMB, a year-on-year increase of 8.7%, and the proportion is 30.7%. The actual use of FDI in the high-tech industry is up by 60.6%, a proportion up to 21.9%. The actual use of FDI in the high-tech manufacturing industry is 56.2 billion RMB, a year-on-year increase of 29.9%. Among which the electronics manufacturing, the telecommunication equipment, the computers manufacturing, and the medical equipments and other instruments manufacturing has registered respectively an increase of 49.5%, 74.2%, and 106.4%. The third characteristic is that we have increased the actual use of FDI in the eastern and middle part of China, and the free trade experimental zones are leading. In the western part of China, the actual use of FDI is 39.4 billion yuan, a year-on-year increase of 28.6%. In the middle part of China, actual use of FDI at 41.04 billion yuan, a year-on-year increase of 4.6%. For the 11 free trade experimental zone, the actual use is of 70.2 billion RMB, a year-on-year increase of 19.3%, and a proportion up to 12.5%. The fourth characteristic is that we have also seen an increase in the major investment from the major investor areas for the 8 first months of this year. The major investors region like the Singapore, South Korea, Japan, UK, USA, and Macau has increased their investment in China respectively by 17.2%, 56.9%, 33.4%, 151.7%, 23.6%, and 71.1%. The actual investment by the ASEAN country has also increased, a year-on-year increase of 27.2%, and the Belt and Road regions and countries, a year-on-year increase of 26.3%. The second information is about China's investments in other foreign countries for 8 months of this year. Chinese investors has invested in 4,309 foreign enterprises among 153 countries and regions in the whole world, especially in the non-financial area. And we have realized an actual investment of $74 billion, a year-on-year increase of 7.8%. And we have also realized a turnover of 95 $6.04 billion in the contracted foreign programs, and year-on-year increase of 7.4%. We have dispatched 309,000 people to work abroad, and by the end of August, we have dispatched 994,000 people. That's about an increase of 42,000 people compared with the same period of last year. And following up several characteristics about China's foreign investment to other countries for the first 8 months of 2018. First, we have stabilized and also promoted our investments in the Belt and Road countries. For the first 8 months of this year, we have invested in the 50 countries along the Belt and Road region with an investment volume up to $958 billion, and year-on-year increase of 12%. The second characteristic is that we have optimized the structure of investment. For the first month, we have invested mainly in leasing, commercial service, manufacturing, mining, wholesale, and retails. The third characteristic is that the Eastern China is still the major force in the foreign investment, and we have seen a rapid and steady growth in the investment from the northeastern part of China. For the first 8 months of 2018, we have registered or approved 5,806 foreign invested companies. And the volume of Chinese agreement is up to $85.8 billion, among which 5,776 of those enterprises work in the non-financial sector, and the Chinese agreement invested volume is $79.2 billion. The third information is about China's foreign trade during the first 8 months in the year. We have registered a total volume of import and export of 19.43 trillion RMB, an year-on-year increase of 9.1%, among which exportation at 10.34 trillion yuan, an increase of 5.4%, and importation at 9.09 trillion yuan, an increase of 13.7%. We have maintained a steady and relatively fast increase in the import and export. We have optimized the structure. There are several characteristics of China's foreign trade. First, from the angle of view of international market, for the first 8 months of this year, we have traded with the European Union countries, the US, and Japan with an increase of exportation respectively by 4.4%, 6.5%, and 1.4%. And our increase rate is 0.4 percentage points, 0.9 percentage points, and 0.1 percentage points respectively compared with the first 7 months. At the same time, our exportation to the emerging markets has also registered very fast increase, and we have also seen the increase in our trade with the BRICS countries and Belt and Road countries, respectively by 13.3% and 12%. For the regions inside China, the eastern and middle part of the western and middle part of China have registered a 12.4%, and eastern part of China registered 4.1%. And let's look at the players in the foreign trade. The private enterprises, they have exported 4.95 trillion RMB, an increase of 8.2%. And they continue to be the major force, the first-class force in our foreign trade. And the state-owned enterprises, they have exported 1.1 trillion yuan, an increase of 7.5%. And the foreign enterprises in China, they have exported 4.27 billion 4.27 trillion RMB, an increase of 1.9%. As to the structure of the goods exported by China, the machineries at 6.01 trillion yuan, an increase of 7%, and among which the integrated circuits, automobiles, computers, and other separate parts, they have respectively registered an increase of 18.9%, 17.9%, and 5.2%. For the computers and their parts, integrated circuits, the motors, they have also increased their value added when they are exported. For the trade categories, the general trade exports is 5.9 trillion yuan, up by 10.1%, and the processed trade at 3.24 trillion yuan, up by 0.2%. Let's look at the new forms of foreign trade. The cross-border e-commerce and the market purchasing trade, they have registered a consecutive increase for 2 years in a row, and this year they have maintained this momentum of fast increase. They have become the highlight of our foreign trade increase. We have also strengthened our capacity of independent innovation. For the importation for the first 8 months, we have increased the importation of natural gas, the crude oil, and charcoal by 17.4%, among which the crude oil, natural gas, the copper concentrates, and iron ore sands have respectively registered an increase of 6.5%, 34.8%, 17.9%, and 14.7%. And now I'd like to respond to your questions. Thank you. We have noticed that Donald Trump has announced that they will very rapidly impose another tariff on the worth of 200 billion of Chinese imports. What is the response and reaction from the Chinese side? Thank you for your question. We have noticed the words from the U.S. side, and their decision on the increase of tariff on Chinese goods will finally will harm the interests of the U.S., the Chinese, and the whole world. They are ignoring the calls from the customers, and they are upgrading the conflicts in the trading circle. And this action of the U.S., in order to threaten China, will not work out, and it will not help to solve the problem. We hope that the U.S. would consider to take pragmatic measures and to use equal and honest dialogues, and in order to bring our trade relations back to the normal track. Thank you. Thank you. We know that by the 11th, the WTO has released the report. The U.S. has not corrected its actions as to its countermeasures to Chinese goods. And there will be a worth of $7 billion of countermeasures. What is China's next step? As to the retaliation measures, in the past, the WTO has already made a resolution for the 13 cases of anti-dumping from the U.S. is against the rules of WTO. The U.S. should interpret and realize this decision before the 28th of August. However, until now, they have taken none of the measures. The application for the retaliation measures is the legitimate right of the Chinese side according to the WTO rules. We respect the rules of the WTO and also the decision of the WTO. We will take effective measures to correct those actions that are abusing the rights given by the WTO to set the new order in the international trade. Now, next question, please.
Hi, we're from Reuters. I'll ask the question in English and my colleague will translate. I have 3 questions. The first question is, the list of U.S. goods that China can add tariffs on is getting shorter at this point. Will China consider imposing further tariffs on the U.S. goods that it has already imposed tariffs on in response to U.S. trade action? The second question is, there have been media reports saying that Chinese regulators are putting up accepting license applications from American companies in various industries, including from the financial services sector, until the trajectory of the U.S.-China relationship improves and stabilizes. Could you comment on whether this is true? The third question is, we have reports that the U.S. has sent an invitation to senior Chinese officials for a new round of trade talks in the coming weeks. Does China expect such talks to occur in the near future? And does Beijing believe that 2 sides may be able to reach a concrete agreement that would at least ease some of the trade frictions?
谢谢发言人。我们来自路透社，我们有3个问题。第一个是受从美国进口产品总额限制，中国可以新增关税的美国商品有限，请问是否会考虑对已加征关税的美国产品进一步提高关税？第二个问题是，均有媒体报道称，中国为了抗衡美国延缓批准美国公司在金融服务及其他行业的许可申请，直至美国贸易纠纷上出现进展，请问这是否属实？第3个问题是，有消息称美国财政部长姆努钦里向中国发出了重启贸易谈判的邀请，请问中方是否预期新一轮谈判会在近期发生，以及是否相信中美双方能在新一轮谈判中达成一些能够消除双方长期贸易摩擦的具体协议？谢谢。
谢谢你的3个问题。关于你的第一个问题
Thank you for 3 questions. As to your first question,
中美经贸摩擦会进一步升级。我想这种情况是各方都
I think that there's a hypothesis that there will be an upgrading in the trade war between China and the US, and I think no one will be willing to see that. For the second question, I think you should go up to the responsible authorities. For the third question, the negotiators at both sides, they have been in touch with each other. They have exchanged their opinions. For the Chinese side, we indeed have received the invitation, and we are welcoming that. The Chinese side is still negotiating with the U.S. side on some details. We think that the upgrading of these trade frictions will be wanted by any of our side.
发言人你好，第一财经日报记者提问。美欧日似乎已经在自贸区的前期谈判达成了某些一致。请问发言人，中国
For the U.S. and the Japan and the European unions, they have already entered a preliminary talk about the free trade zone. What is China's plan? Are you interested to join? Until now, China has concluded 17 free trade agreements with 25 countries to cover different continents and oceans. And now we are also doing the negotiation with 27 other countries about the conclusion of 12 new agreements on the free trade. Between China and Sri Lanka, China, Japan, and South Korea, and China and Pakistan, between China and Singapore, China and New Zealand, we are also upgrading our free trade agreements. Currently, there's the globalization, which remains to be the major tendency of the world development. To promote the development of certain countries, a free trade zone is a measure to help China to contribute to an open world economy. And we are willing to work with more countries interested in that to discuss on the details of establishment of the free trade areas in order to make our regional economy more integrated. And we are also willing to work with other countries to work out on a multilateral free trade mechanism and to protect the security of the global value chain, and also to promote a higher development in the wider areas of the world economy. Thank you. According to the foreign media, the U.S. government would use the excuse of violation of intellectual property to stop the Chinese entrepreneurs to do business in the U.S. What is the comment? Thank you for your question. We have noticed that this information, but we are not sure whether it is exact. China has always protected intellectual property. Once there's a violation and it is an exact information, we will use the logistic tool to punish that. And we hope that the U.S. side would also take a just attitude on the Chinese entrepreneurs' actions. And we hope that their decisions could be very well grounded, so that the enterprises from China or from other countries will lose their confidence on the U.S. business environment.
谢谢发言人。央广经济之声记者提问。我们注意到上周海关统计的数据显示，8月份我国对美国的出口增速加快了，
the information of last week for August,
出口增速呢是2.3%。那么这个贸易顺差呢是上升到一个创纪录的310亿美元。
China has
中美经贸摩擦的大背景下，请问您怎么看待这组数据？谢谢。
registered a $3.1 billion of surplus in the China-U.S. trade. What is your comment? We have been following that. Actually, the deficit in the U.S. trade with China is due to a series of elements. For the surplus and deficit in the trade, it is increasing or it is decreasing is always dependent on the market. This year, we have increased our exportation to the U.S. It's because there is an increase in the domestic market demand in the U.S. side. Of course, some Chinese enterprises, they are worrying about the importation policies in the U.S., so they have decided to export in advance. For the U.S. side, they should know that an increase in the tariff, this kind of unilateral measures will not work out. We hope that we could work towards each other and join our efforts to ensure a very healthy bilateral trade relations between the two countries. Thank you. Also about the U.S.-China trade, for the first 8 months, the good trade, China has registered 9.1%. However, the U.S. is doing less well in comparison with China. Is it a result from the trade frictions between China and the U.S.? For this year, the trade of China is registering a very steady and relatively rapid growth. We are optimizing the structure, and the quality has also been improved. The U.S. has launched these trade frictions. Of course, this will bring negative impact on the Chinese side. We don't want to see that. We hope to have a very sound development between the two sides. However, the unilateral protectionism from the U.S. side is delivering a bad news. In general, there are a lot of uncertainties in the external environment. However, the foreign trade of China has still maintained its fundamentals. We have the independent driving force that is our independent creativity and innovation capacity. We have the power to maintain our own sound development in the trade. Thank you. Recently, Chinese President Xi Jinping has attended the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok in Russia, and what is the newest result? Thank you for your question. In recent years, the regional commercial relations between China and Russia has increased our trade. For 8 years, China has maintained the largest trade partner with Russia. For this year, we have also witnessed a very fast growth. For the first 8 months, our bilateral trade has been up by 25.7%, a total volume of $67.5 billion. And China will remain the major investor into Russia. For the first 7 months, we have invested $230 million in all sectors of Russia. We have cooperated in aerospace, in energy, in natural resources, and some other strategic sectors. This time, upon the invitation of the Russian president, Chinese President Xi Jinping has attended the 4th Eastern Economic Forum, and he has also met the Russian president. Witnessed by the two countries' presidents, the two countries have signed a lot of agreements at the governmental level and enterprise level to cover local government cooperation, logistics, energy, and some other areas, among which the MOFCOM of China and the Far East Development Agency of Russia have also signed a plan for the future cooperation. This is a guideline document to guide the future cooperation between China and the Far East region of Russia. It will also help the enterprises to do their future cooperation programs. We have also signed an agreement of establishment of an enterprise council between the northeastern part of China and the Far East region of Russia. This council will help to facilitate the work of enterprises from both sides, and this council will also become a complementary force in the governmental cooperation. Local cooperation is another highlight. During his visit in Russia, President Xi Jinping and President Putin have participated in the local governmental cooperation forum. They have shown the clear direction for the future development. And during this event, they have also signed agreements on the forestry development, energy, manufacturing of the machines, logistics, medicines, and finance. This has enriched the content of the global strategic partnership between China and Russia. For the next period to come, we will continue to interpret the decisions into real actions, and we will work with the local governments at different levels and also local enterprises in order to collaborate closely with our Russian friends. And we will also realize all the outcomes from our communication and negotiations. We will accelerate the cooperation in minerals, transportation, and energy. Thank you. The next question, please.
谢谢，我是中央人民广播电台的记者，也是关于习主席访俄的。您刚刚提到这个习主席访俄的一项重要的。
Also, a question on that visit by President Xi on Russia. You have mentioned that one highlight is local economic cooperation. Please talk about the status quo of China's cooperation with the Far East region of Russia and what will be the future developments. Thank you. In recent years, guided by the strategic cooperation supported by both presidents in China's northeastern part and the Far East region and Beiko region, in different areas we have registered significant progress. First of all, we have maintained very fast development in the trade volume and value. For example, it has reached $7.7 billion, and China has become the largest partner for trade for the Far East region of Russia. According to the statistics of the Russian side, China has participated in the Leaping Forward programs of the Far East area of Russia. And the planned investment volume would be up to $4.2 billion. For the program's investment, it is also moving forward very steady. For example, we have the construction project for the bridges, and for the next year, we can expect an operation of the bridge. We have also collaborated on the environment protection, on the exploitation of energy, forest resources, and also the port construction. We are also negotiating the planification of some other energy programs. And this time, President Xi Jinping has visited Russia to attend the 4th Eastern Economic Forum. They have concluded new consensus on the regional development and cooperation. There will be a new strategic opportunity period for the two sides of cooperation. For the next step to come, we will continue to coordinate our policies and to give more support to the enterprises in order to promote their cooperation. In major areas, we can expect new outcomes. Altogether, we can make China and Russia the examples of regional cooperation. The next question, please. Due to the time limit, this is the last chance. Thank you. In recent years, we have opened the CFIIT in Xiamen of Fujian. What is the result? We have just closed the 20th Chinese International Fair for Investment and Trade. More than 1,000 enterprises have participated. We have organized more than 150 events, and more than 1,900 agreements have been concluded, among which we have used the FDI at a volume of $251 billion. More than 600 invested guests from more than 70 regions and countries have spoken during the events. There are several characteristics. First of all, the Belt and Road Initiative has become a highlight. This year marks the 5th year of the launching of the Belt and Road Initiative. We have organized different events under the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. For example, there's a China International Fair for Investment and Trade. And second characteristic of this international fair is the participation of more international organizations. This has shown that this kind of event has become more globalized. we have invited the World Trade Cooperation Council and some other organizations to participate in this event. For the different regions and provinces of China, they have sent the delegations to discuss and share their experience. The Trade Development Agency of the UN has published a document, the Chinese version of the 2018 Chinese trade. And we have also received the BRICS country e-commerce report. The third characteristics, we are focusing on the regional economic development trend. The bilateral trade is one of the high topics. New challenge, new opportunity, joint efforts to contribute to the global open economy is the theme of our international fair. We have more than 80 sub-forums and also some other events and things in order to facilitate different levels of bilateral trade. We have also organized the facilitation of trade and the 23rd World Investment Forum. Some other seminars on the cross-border trade and the fourth enterprise dialogue on the trade. During the opening ceremony of the China International Fair of Investment and Trade, President Xi Jinping has set this message of congratulations and also the guidelines. Moving forward, we'd like to continue to work under this framework to create new brands, upgrade the quality, and turn this international fair in Xiamen into a new platform at high level of cooperation. So now is the end of today's regular press conference. Thank you for your participation.